From alcohol overuse to moderate use, no more shame and blame. Is your own alcohol use on your mind a lot? Since almost everyone who enjoys alcohol has likely had a binge, how do we manage that? How do we know how much is too much? And how do we regain control when we think we've lost it? In this special 12-part series, confidence coach Susan Axelrod interviews alcohol moderation expert Dr. Michelle Perron. This series begins with the question, why are we having this conversation now? And it wraps up with a burning question for you to consider. For your own alcohol use practice, what will your path be? This special series is sponsored by Axelrod Confidence Coaching. Hello, friends. Welcome to today's episode of this important podcast series. We're coming down to the end, and it feels unfortunate and sad, except that I want this series to be complete for you. If you have just happened onto this episode, join us, listen in, and then by all means, go back and listen to the entire series. Please start at one and commit, map into your schedule, map into your calendar, going back and listening to all of the episodes. I promise you will be very well served in many ways. So every episode, we offer you a challenge. Michelle has given us a challenge to make. And last week, we talked about the Alcohol Impact Index. We reviewed a whole survey that Dr. Michelle Perron has created, uses in her practice, which shows in part how alcohol amplifies existing conditions. As you go through the index, as you go through the survey, if you listen to that episode, you will hear questions and you might say to yourself, I have that, I hear that, that seems familiar, wow, that's right on. And so I encourage you to do that. And then last week's challenge was, where could you make changes and learn more about your total health and well-being? Of course, this speaks to me because I am an integral wellness consultant and it's incorporated into all of my work as a confidence coach, because it's impossible to feel confident if you are feeling unwell. So we are going to get into it today. Hi, Michelle. Good to see you.
Hi, Susan. Nice to see you again.
Nice
I can't
to
believe we're at episode 11 already.
Amazing. I know. I can believe it because, as our listeners know, I record the episodes with you and I listen to every episode we do. This is such rich, deep material. I've listened to all of our episodes multiple times. Today, we're going to be talking about something absolutely crucial: normalizing moderation over time. In my coaching work, I call this making time your friend. And what you were just saying to me before we came on was, it doesn't happen immediately, which is another reason we want people to go back and listen to all the episodes. Lots of questions, lots of thought-provoking information. And then you said to me, it's a process, you said, and I already started our notes before our episode, and you said it takes self-compassion. And of course, any kind of change or personal transformation does. So let's get started today with this important conversation, and thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. I'd like to lead off with that self-compassion idea. No one is going to do the process perfectly because it's not the impossible goal. In other words, everyone's path to moderation is slightly different. We are not made at a car factory. We're not exactly alike. So understanding that you will have your path, your way, and it doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, it will not be perfect, but it will be perfectly you. And so go with that. Do it scared, do it uncertain, and do it imperfectly. That's how you're going to do those little acts of self-esteem, so that esteemable acts leads to better self-esteem, better self-love, better compassion. I'm going to do this anyway in my imperfection. So let's give it a try.
So let's just stop here for 1 second. Over our time together, you have said to me, I love it when you stop me and go over things to give people a chance to rewind and tune in here and listen. And you said, do it scared, do it uncertain. If somebody's already listening to us, they're already listening for a reason. If somebody has been following all the episodes, they're already following for a reason. And all the way in the 11th episode that we're having, you are acknowledging it could be scary and it definitely can feel uncertain. And you clearly said it's not a perfect process. It can, however, be perfectly you. Michelle, there's something coming up for me, which is the truth, which I'm just going to call out. I don't want to get you off your, you know, conversation today, but it does feel to me like if somebody is already using in a way that they know could be considered overuse or inappropriate, they might already be in the shame game a little bit. They may have been blamed already a little bit, a nod to our podcast title, from alcohol overuse to moderate use, no more blame and shame. I wanted to ask you to just say another word or two about the self-compassion, dare we say self-love, and how that really plays in to the ability to come into normalizing moderation.
I always tell my clients they have to care about themselves. If you're compassionate and you care about others, people in your life that you love or your work that you're passionate about, you have to include yourself in that equation. Love yourself as much as you love your grandmother or your husband or wife. You have to love yourself as much, not in a diva, you're my minions, you have to do something for me, and not in a subservient way, but in an equal, valued way. I think when you include yourself in your priorities, everything else is going to turn out a whole lot better. And in an equitable way, not above or below, but equitable with the people that you care about in your life. So care enough about yourself to start making some little changes that will lead to big differences over time.
Wow, gosh, I could feel my breath getting like like shallow from how important this is. Include yourself in your priorities. And I know this not from alcohol overuse, but from my type A journey. And so this teaching is, of course, really for anyone, but it may be scary. It may be uncertain. You may have come to depend on alcohol to a certain extent, and it may be scary to give it up. But love yourself as much as you said your grandmother, or also your own child. Because your child loves you really, for you to be well and healthy and really care about yourself enough. And if you are feeling, if you're hearing these words and you're feeling that that you don't really love yourself, or you're feeling what we call self-loathing, we really want to say that we're here and we see you and we feel you. And to some extent, every person feels this. And in this conversation that Michelle is having with you today, you have an opportunity to breathe, open, and really allow. So thank you, Michelle. Continue.
I love that you brought up self-loathing. I did have a client, a person you would never guess in a million years was self-loathing. He was a very successful attorney somewhere in the world. And he came to me, and the first day he was so flat and so unhappy. And he said those words that I loathe myself.
I loathe myself. Oh my gosh.
It was so painful for me to hear, because I value all of my clients and human beings in general, regardless of their way of being. And so it's so important that when you have good people doing good things, that they don't self-loathe. So over the course of our working together, he did come around and learn to understand himself and his history in a contextual way, and he stopped self-loathing, and he was able to stop drinking too, which wasn't his original goal, but and be present for his wife and her kids and his kids, and yeah, it worked out in the end, and he was no longer self-loathing because he understood where that came from.
Yeah, and you said he understood that in a contextual way.
Mm-hmm.
And so we really there's reasons for all of this.
Yep.
The reasons of the child within, the psyche, the mind, the evolution of how we came up. And so thank you for sharing that real story.
There's that cliche that someone who's drinking is a loser. I mean, that's come across everyone's mind. It's come across many of my clients' minds, and it's not that at all. I find that the people that I work with, like this attorney, are at the pinnacle of their career. They're doing really well, or they're shut in at home. Maybe they're the wife or the husband, or they've recently lost their work because of all the crazy transitions in the economy and everything. It doesn't matter where you are. You can always begin to rebuild from wherever you're starting from. So, and there's no such thing. I mean, I guess there still is, but it's less common in my world these days to meet someone who is homeless and living that. There are services for homeless people that take care of that piece, but that's the idea that comes to mind, the brown paper bag, and it's not the case. Most people are your neighbors, your friends, the people you encounter at stores, attorneys, doctors, lawyers. They're everywhere and everyone. They're even clergy. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
So accepting this as a human problem, and being compassionate about it and helping. I've never met a client I just didn't like and didn't want to work with. God just doesn't bring those people into my life. So I appreciate that.
I definitely also want to say that the if in quotation marks, the bum out on the street with the brown bag bottle and the brown bag is it's not a myth, it's a media perpetration.
Yeah.
Of course they do exist, but the point that you just shared with us is, and this is personally familiar to me, that's what you think you thought about what you think you thought about what the quote alcoholic really is. And that's you're here to say, and now I'm here to say, oh no, that's, yes, of course they are there. Of course that is true and real, sadly, on our city streets, but maybe more, or as much as or at least they are the professionals, the clergy, the this, the that, and all the other people hiding in plain sight. Yeah.
When I was in this career for about 10 years, I had a family member actually say to my face, I don't know why you're interested in those people. I have enough of my own problems. And I thought, it took my breath away. That wasn't even a thought in my head. And I thought, those people are me. I am them.
Yeah.
That's not a separation. I feel their feelings, and I, regardless of our differences, I see the sameness of it. And I thought, I wouldn't even know how to live in the world she was living in.
Right. I completely, now that I know what I know, I completely get you. And also, Michelle, in part, I was already this way. That's why you contacted me in the first place. But also, since we met, since our conversations, since I've learned episode by episode what you're sharing with us, I have become even more bold than ever to talk about alcohol use and say things right out to people and say, make sure you get your protein, and really just share the things that I'm learning right out, because I know that everybody needs to hear it, because, we'll all be better off for it. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
All right. So today we're starting with how to normalize moderation over time. It is a process. Some people it's shorter, some people it's longer. There's no right and, in a year, in 6 months, in 2 weeks. There's none of that. You're going to have your process, and all you have to do is have your personal best. You're looking for your own personal best as you go. You're not competing with anybody else or meeting anyone else's expectations. You're dealing with you. And and I'm a guide if you choose to work with me, right? I'm not your authority. I'm not the boss of you. You're the boss of you. So that's the first thing. Your process is going to be uniquely yours. But there are some similarities as the process goes. And I call those the levels of competence, which are pretty much in any field as well. And so your goal is going to be realized over time. How much time depends on how much effort, how much your mind is converting over to a new way of thinking, that identity migration process that we talked about early on. Mm-hmm. And so when we first realize, well, we don't even realize, when we first start getting into drinking, at some point, sometimes it gets out of hand. It gets, but it's been normalized in our culture, heavy drinking. So when you're not contemplating, should I do anything, you're unconsciously incompetent. You don't realize you have a problem. You're not looking at volume as an issue. We're not really told that. The long-term heavy drinkers are going to get liver cirrhosis, but not me, because I'm not drinking that much every day, like only 1 or 2 a day. Like, we tend to push away things that we feel are extreme when it could very well be you, not just the person drinking high volume and high frequency. So you don't know what you don't know to begin with. So you're unaware that you lack a skill or the evaluation or an understanding, of the process. So over time, you might start getting little comments or conversations with people who know you, and people might be noticing that, gee, you just got drunk yesterday and here you are again. Or, last weekend was a big weekend. We were on vacation, and now this weekend we're home and it's doing that again. Or, hey, I noticed, like, anything goes wrong and you're drinking a lot. Or, gee, we just finished a bottle of wine yesterday. Like, you're at it again. Or, I bought beer over the weekend and it's now Wednesday and there's nothing in the garage. Like, what's going on? You start those little things. And so now I start to think about, maybe there are some changes I need to make. So now I'm conscious that I have an issue, but I'm not really doing anything about it. So I recognize and that I need some knowledge or skills or guidance or something. So that's the part where I might start looking at YouTube to find out what I don't know. Or, and typically I'm going to run into AA and I'm going to read some of the things that are being written, and I'm going to be a little skeptical, but maybe my neighbor is going and I have an opinion of my neighbor, and maybe I get online and realize it's not for me, or maybe I'll go check it out and it's really not for me, or whatever, right? Like, there's a mixed bag there. There might be smart recovery. There might be, maybe someone's really, worried and they'll send me a link to a treatment center. Like, oh my gosh, I don't think I'm that far gone. Like, that's not me, right? So that would be that part where I'm starting to look at, where do I fit in the range of things that I can do to maybe improve what's happening. And so
that would then be conscious incompetence.
Yep.
So you go from I don't know. The incompetent is, I don't know what I don't know, but you go from the beginning of the spectrum where you're not even aware of it. And we've talked about this in another episode. You specifically said in another episode that you realize people are making comments to you.
Yeah.
And so in this progression of the levels of competence, with which I am very familiar, as a matter of fact, then you go from unconscious, and then if you're tuning in, you become consciously aware that you're
something's up, like a yellow flag goes up, maybe not a red flag, but now you're going to start doing a little bit of learning to see, where do I fit in the spectrum? Like, am I really bad? Am I just a little, do I have a small problem? Do I have a big problem? Like, where does this lie? Right. And sometimes you need a second opinion. You might go for an assessment, but you're not going to go to treatment because I'm not that person.
Right. And is this really me? Is this really happening? And this is, now that we're saying this, the unconscious incompetent phase is okay, you don't realize what you're not conscious of. I wrote it down. You don't realize what you're not conscious of.
Yeah.
The minute you move from that space into the world of conscious, even if you're still incompetent at it, you don't know what to do about it, or you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
When you become consciously aware of it, this is a make or break little space, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because what are
You're
you going
trying to fit what size your problem is. It's a like, oh, is it an oh moment, or is it like, no big deal? Or do I think the volume I'm drinking is no big deal when in fact it might be? That's usually an awakening for people when they think, oh, I'm not drinking that much. My body, my friends do this, that, and the other thing. I'm not as bad as them, but I might be bad enough for me based on the alcohol impact index and based on your sense of awareness of what you're doing and how you're doing it.
And as you've shared with us in other episodes, also based on how old you are, you've said many times, you're not 20 anymore. You're 50, you're 60, you're 70, so based on your age, based on your stress level, based on how much protein you have, based on your understanding amino acids, go listen to those episodes. And so you said, what size is my problem? My problem might be different based on a lot of these factors that we've discussed in other episodes.
Yeah. And once again, the factor that you're uniquely you, and no one else in the world has your configuration or constellation of physiology, biology, psychology, neurotransmitters, habits, or experience. Like, you're uniquely you on the earth. So no two clients, for me anyway, have been exactly alike. Everyone's individual, and so you have to treat yourself like you're special and different, because you are. Yeah. And then from there, when we have a little bit of sleuthing on the internet, most people can get to conscious competence. You learned a little bit about this, you start to size up, where do I fit on the spectrum or on the range of drinking, and then I have to actively focus and think about what changes I want to make, and then how do I implement those changes. So this is where people might go into cut back. There's the word cutting back on their alcohol. And there are apps that go along with that, and little AI promptings and all that sort of thing. So a lot of people will try that, or they'll join an online group that isn't particularly expensive. Some of them say, oh, moderation's great, and then you get into them and this bait and switch. Oh no, nobody here is drinking, and that's it's the old paradigm still. I've had many clients come to me from some providers like that, and it's not what it says it is. And so figuring out what to do, how to do it, and when to do it. So most people try doing that on their own. They don't.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Most people don't readily seek the advice of other people unless they feel their problem is much bigger. Most people will try.
Or somebody said, you better do this or I'm walking out.
Yeah.
That would be
a big
a threat. Mm-hmm.
A threat. Whether it's in relationships, work, or health.
Right.
Or health threats. Those are the three big things that bring people to my door.
So that's interesting. Okay, this is a really stop here moment. Mm-hmm. And I already said the moving from the unconscious incompetence, moving to the consciousness. I mean, any progression in conscious awareness, this is my actual confident life methodology. The first phase of my methodology is conscious, becoming consciously aware.
Overlap.
That's right. That's right. And then the second phase is clarity, asking clarifying questions. So the minute you move, that you begin to notice, you said that you become aware of people making comments to you, and somebody especially saying the words that you might have had in the back of your mind, like, oh, we got our beer and it's already gone by Wednesday. Mm-hmm. Or you just finished a bottle of wine last night and now you're having another one. These comments that begin to create a yellow flag, you said. And then you said somebody might begin to ask themselves, what size is my problem?
Mhm.
This is the place where we deny, I don't have a problem. You have a problem. No. Or also, Michelle, I wonder if this is the place where we might begin to see lying. No, you didn't buy beer. That was from last week. That wasn't
Yes.
from this weekend.
Yeah.
This is the place.
And you start reacting negatively. Someone asks you something and you feel attacked, or you have an argument, or you feel protective or aggressive when someone, asks you about your drinking. That's a red flag. That's more than a yellow flag. Like, uh-oh, if I'm protecting my supply, denying my use, if it's getting more frequent, I might just be binging on the weekends. But that's still an issue, right? Still a problem. It might not be daily drinking. So I have to come to that consideration of someone else's opinion without biting their head off,
Right.
without reacting, without being triggered, to say, okay, do I need to consider this? What's right for me?
So,
What do
so
I
we're
want to do? And I most certainly, by the way, don't want to quit. And don't tell me that I have to quit. Don't, because the more the family says or the loved one says, you really have to take a break. You have to stop in some way. There's a huge protective mechanism, and I call it the voice of alcohol, that says absolutely not. This is not happening on my watch. I'm going to drink when I want to. I'm an adult, quote, and I can make my own choices. And what they don't realize in this conscious um, incompetence, and then this conscious attempt to start to do this, is that alcohol is really driving the bus. When you think an alcohol is saying, I'm an adult, I can do what I want. Really, though? Because often alcohol, hijacks the brain. It's well known. And it stops the ordinary no and supports the ultimate yes every time. I'm not going to say no to a drink. When I start to have a problem with drinking, the answer is never no. It's always yes. And, it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Of course. Okay. Okay, Michelle, in I believe our first episode, I'd have to go back, but I'm pretty sure it's in our very first episode that you said alcohol is not just a liquid. It's not just something you drink. You said alcohol is different from anything else you drink.
Mhm.
And we've talked about all the very many ways, this and that, all the way to here when you say, literally, alcohol has a voice, the voice of alcohol. I'm an adult and I can make my own choice. You don't get to tell me what to do. And you called it, protecting your supply, protecting your use. And I just want to say, in my experience, have come to call that the voice of addiction.
Mhm.
Now, I have no experience in drug addiction, to be clear. So, but as soon as you said the voice of alcohol, personally, I extrapolate myself to call that, if this is already happening to you,
Mhm.
you're already in some level of addiction
Yeah.
behavior, which is where it's in the brain, not just a behavior.
Yes. And the reason I avoid using the word addiction
Yeah.
is because now all of a sudden, to the ordinary person just figuring this out for themselves, if I use the word addiction, now it's a clinical doctor big deal. And now I'm more fearful, and now I've got stuff to do, or I'm going to die, or I'm one of them. This notion in my head of what addiction looks like when I'm just drinking a glass of wine. Like, so I use the voice of alcohol because for the people I work with, I no longer work with heroin or methamphetamine or heavy street drugs. I'm strictly alcohol and sometimes THC use. So I think it's important not to scare away someone who isn't committed yet to change. So when I talk about the voice of alcohol, it's somehow less scary than the voice of addiction,
I
even though
mean,
they're the same thing.
wow. This is, God, I have to like literally breathe for a second. This is so big because anyone who's been in this world, anyone who knows anything, which I never used to know anything, and a lot of people don't know anything. And how many stories do you hear where you say, I didn't know, I had no idea that was happening to them. And that's still, after all this, after all the edification and education, and, there's so many ways to know, there's still so many people, I hear it all the time now. I had no idea, right?
Yeah.
And so then you said, the minute you introduce the word addiction, it makes it a, big deal. It's a scary deal for the person to think of that themselves. And yeah, I really love what's happening here. This is the
so
word
much
that
more pushback on that word.
right. They're going to push back on that word. Right. And this is what I call to edify. To edify means to educate in a certain way, like to create awareness about the edification of what you're offering us is so big. And it could be a make or break difference.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
it literally could be a make or break difference.
Moderation. And it does make a make or break difference, because in my world, people don't relapse. They just have an over drinking event.
Oh my God, this is ridiculous.
We tell how many drinks we have.
Right.
Like there's a linguistic difference, and this is one of those. It's not, yes, it is addiction technically. I can diagnose that. I have a PhD, I can do that. But if I use those words with people who are tentative, they will run. They will run because they don't want to be recommended to inpatient treatment. Typically, they don't want their whole life to be disrupted. They don't want their worldview to be disrupted in a way that they're not ready. It separates my ability to call someone in and help them through a difficult time in a way that they can maintain who they are. And it's a kinder, gentler, more compassionate way than, because addiction is scary. It kills. And while I recognize fully that alcohol does that, when I'm speaking to someone who might be in fear, who might be concerned and not really know, and wants to make some changes, but they want to feel normal and not labeled, I'm very careful to not. People say, what would it be? I don't make diagnoses anymore because I'm a coach. And I don't believe the labeling does any good.
I have to breathe. This is so big and so deep. And really, I could hear, I'm listening, and I can feel the difference of what you're sharing with us. And you said, in my world, people don't relapse. They have a drinking incident.
Mm-hmm. An over drinking event.
A drinking event. Then you'd be like, how'd that work out for you?
Yes.
I know.
How did you feel when you woke up in the morning? Was there a plan to do that? Or, no, I got some bad news. Somebody died. And okay, now we're talking about coping skills.
Right. And just to make reference to the entire episode where we talked about planning your drinking, that was ridiculous. I'm like, what are you talking about? Now I know. Now I say it to other people. Like I said to you just before, I don't know if it was on air or off. Now I say to people, oh, you're going to plan your drinking this weekend for the wedding or for the Super Bowl or for the party that you want to have. You're going to be in a place that's safe and no problem, plan your drinking, have fun with that. Oh gosh, this is so good. Okay. I'm with you. I'm back with you, back on board.
I'm so glad that you have practical application and understand where I'm coming from. That means a lot. And then the last one, the fourth part of this is this, first you have this conscious competence where you're aware, and then you start trying some of the things you've looked at. And then you may or may not succeed with that. So if you're struggling for a little bit and it's on again, off again, or you're not getting the results, that would be the time to seek help, whether it's with me or someone that works in the same space, or if you're choosing to go to AA, or you're going to treatment, or you want to go to your mental health specialist and get medications, however you feel is right for you. My encouragement is to start simple, make it easy. It's much easier to eat an elephant one bite at a time than all at once, right?
Right.
And so to get you to a place where this is second nature to you and you're no longer having to think about your drinking, takes some practice. And you need some good and positive support and encouragement. and little ideas that get seeded and grow over time as you practice. That's how change is occurring. It's gradual. And so, and over time you become unconsciously competent. Now, for me, with my clients, they become unconsciously competent within 3 to 6 months. Some take longer. But the ones that take longer are not doing the things that I am asking them to do. So it's important to have some skin in the game, have some commitment to your own well-being, and
I mean,
do some of these things.
I just want to stop you. I know what unconscious competence is as well, but I'm sorry, I'm taking a long time with this, but I really want to stay in this. And we're going to be moving on to unconscious competence, where you are in flow. You're in alignment with your being. But before we get there, I wanted to reiterate that you said in the third phase of this, basically, I wanted to reiterate that I wrote most people try to do that on their own.
Mhm.
And I think, Michelle, there's a lot of people who try to do that on their own. And I think, Michelle, that there's a lot of people who fail at this on their own. And then I think, Michelle, that the voice of alcohol says, see, you are a failure and you are a loser. And I'm the right way to go. The voice of alcohol is not just telling the person, in connection with the other person, I'm an adult. You don't tell me how much I can drink, but in with myself, the voice
Internally.
of alcohol is telling me, see, you tried over and over and you failed, and screw it. I'm in charge of you. So am I right on this point? Or
Absolutely. And I think it brings in the impossible goal that we talked about, this abstinence-based only treatment. It's black and white. And when you're in that black and white space where if you drink one drink, you're shot, and if you don't drink at all, you're a winner. And when you get into that dichotomy, it reinforces the idea that, see, you can't do that. See, you can't do that. And it guarantees a relapse. It guarantees overuse. It guarantees guilt, shame, and failure. It guarantees it. So the way that I work with people is in what I call the new modern recovery, where it's not about that. I want you to learn the voice of alcohol, what it sounds like in your head, not my
right.
head, but what it sounds like in your head. So you can say, I know what that is. Or so in combination with, maybe you'll take the naltrexone using the Sinclair method. Maybe you're going to start eating more protein. That's the easiest thing to do. Maybe you want to have an assessment and do amino acid therapy to improve your neurotransmitters, making decisions better, sleeping better, and thinking more clearly faster than waiting for that change. And then having new ideas implanted on purpose right into your specific life issues and struggles that
These
are
other
critical.
things of which you've spoken in all the
Yeah.
episodes, the protein and amino acid episode, the Sinclair method using naltrexone episode, and so on. These other things, basically, what I'm hearing to ask is, they strengthen you.
Yes.
And remember, there's something coming up for you that you're beginning. Remember, you began asking yourself.
Mhm.
And I said this even in the introduction and from the very beginning with you, that there's basically we're here speaking to people who are wondering about themselves. You may likely probably have someone else in your life. It's hard to change someone else. It's hard to do this for someone else, but we're here speaking to you if you're asking yourself these questions.
Mhm.
You said it basically guarantees relapse because it's an either you've succeeded or you failed
Mhm.
in
And no
the
one wants to feel like a failure. No
right,
one wants to feel it's futile, or because despair is not a high frequency emotion. And
right.
it keeps you down, it keeps you stuck. I want to remind people that drinking heavily every day or binging on weekends, alcohol is a solution to an unaddressed problem. It always is. And that's the way that I see it clinically and with with clients. I see it that way. It's a solution to something else. So as you start to reduce your drinking, by the way, that something else is going to start popping up.
There is that. We need to talk about that for a second.
Yeah. So what's unresolved is going to seek to climb out of the grave, right? And that's where help is very useful. So, like, I've dealt with this for 18 years with thousands of people over 18 years, and kind of know my way through this jungle with people. And I really feel a lot of compassion about this. So getting that guidance, even if it's every 2 weeks or once a month, but weekly, I do initially to get through the jungle a little faster. And then once you know the way, having that check-in with someone who knows, you can ask questions, you can think together, you can collaborate, will get you traction better than if you're trying to treat yourself.
Right. The issues underlying the use of alcohol, you said alcohol is a solution, is always a solution to an unaddressed problem. Sometimes the unaddressed problem isn't even known to us or realized by us. And so, in this conversation, if we're sparking something like, okay, I know I binge on weekends. I have a hard week. I work hard all week. And then, I drink a 12-pack in one night on a weekend.
Yes.
And, or I go through a bottle or two, on a Saturday night, which of course we know to be binging over the overuse numbers. And so somebody is saying to themselves, no, that's just me letting loose.
Yes, I'm fine. I've got lots of friends. I've got a good job. Life is good, but I'm drinking 2 bottles of wine every night. Like, okay, let's slow down and let's look at why we're binging on the weekends. Often, if the thought of not over drinking, but not getting intoxicated is scary, that is like a really big neon flashing red sign that there's something scary that needs to be worked through and discussed and sorted. And it's hard. You can't really do that on your own. You need another human being to witness your suffering in order to overcome it. We're just made that way. We're just made that way. We have to share our struggles in order to have camaraderie, support, compassion for each other and ourselves. That's how we're built as humans. If we didn't need other people, we could do this all ourselves and we'd be the only person on the planet.
Right. Okay. We stayed in this phase a long time, and I want to move on only because, we have a time element here, but I just want to invite people to really tune in. We are here holding space in true love for you and for where you are and for what you do and how you do it. And it is scary and it may feel unsafe, but the people who love you want you to go to that place. And so, Michelle, frankly, you are a licensed, you are a trained psychologist. And so you have a container that not just anyone has also. Right. And that makes a big difference. So, all right. So now let's move into the phase of unconscious competence. Yeah.
Yep. So in this one, you've practiced, you've made this. And what happens with most of my clients is they start to notice that they don't feel like drinking. And it at first seems bizarre. I had a client go on vacation, and typically every time they've been to the shore on the East Coast, they've always had many, many drinks and usually pass out at the hotel every night. A beach all day drinking, and then have a little bit of dinner, or just go home and shower.
On vacation.
On vacation.
Yeah.
And a client who experienced that suddenly said she didn't feel like drinking on the beach in the hot sun. And she said, that's weird. That's what I always do. So she brought books on this vacation for the first time, and she read books instead. And it surprised her, as it does everyone who starts to get to unconscious competence. It begins by forgetting to drink. I forgot to drink. Oh, and it's kind of a new thought, new thing. And then over time, they realize that they can still do many of the things they've always done, and it's just not as important to have a drink. And then it becomes less and less important as they develop those extracurricular activities and alternative ways to spend their evenings and start to fill up their lives with hobbies and interests and people and activities and
feel connection to other humans.
Feel connections, yep. And rest when you need to. You don't have to be social every night. You don't want to become a human doing. A human being is a good thing. And you have to do and be and do and be and do and be, right? And
right.
So that happens slowly. And then one day, it's like, oh, yeah, it's my birthday. I'm going to have a glass of wine. Or it's Valentine's Day. I'm going to go on a romantic date. So I'm going to have one or two. But I don't want to wake up tired tomorrow. The value of being clear-headed the next day supersedes the importance of getting intoxicated the night before. And now I'm acting automatically out of intuition, and it's not requiring a conscious effort. It just becomes my new norm.
I don't want to wake up feeling that old way.
Yeah.
I don't want to wake up feeling that old way in the physical. I'm tired and this and that and groggy and this and that. And I don't want to wake up feeling that old way of the hating myself.
Yep. Shame, guilt. Like, what did I do last night? What did I say? Who did I talk to?
Right.
And then it feels more like a time waster. And you find out being present with other people that you like is good. You don't have to get drunk with other people you like. You can actually have conversations and do fun things and learn more about each other and what's going on. And that human connection is more valuable. And alcohol, it might be fun in the moment, but it steals our memories. What else do we have as humans? So it's really important. But that happens. That intuitive,
we talked about that, the blackout drinking, where even if you're not passed out, you don't remember the time spent with the people, right? I want to say basically now I'm listening to you, and boy, I can really feel the idea of, based on this last phase that you just spoke through, where, basically you forget to drink. What is that possible? Yes, it kind of is, because you're reading and you're engaged and you're actually feeling something because you worked a little bit through the unresolved things that you were hiding with your drinking, and then you're connected to humans, etc. Then Michelle, I want to say I really understand what you when you say basically, if something happened and there's a party and you overdrink, then it's not relapsing. It's a drinking event whereby you really do have the tools and be like, oh crap, that
without exception, when my clients are not over drinking for most of the time, and that one event like I had a young man go to a bachelor party in Las Vegas, and he hadn't had very much to drink in 6 months. But the bachelor party, he's like, I'm just going to follow the guy's lead. I'm going to drink with them. He woke up the next morning and he was shocked and he said to me, oh my God, what was I doing? I can't believe I used to live that way. It was awful. I got up late. I missed my plane. I had to reschedule a flight back home. And he was absolutely miserable. He has never relapsed. He's never had an over drinking event since. Because it was so profoundly debilitating, even though he was in his early 30s. It was so profoundly different than the last 6 months of his life that he was like, I don't even want to go. I don't care where I am. I'm not going to over drink because everyone else.
Because it's not fun anymore.
Not reinforcing anymore.
Right. It's not. Yeah, exactly. And likely, as you discussed in one of our episodes of becoming aware, the challenge for that episode was go, but you be the one to not drink. and notice what other people are drinking.
Yeah.
And then, as we discussed in that episode, two things might happen. Either A, you may be like, oh my gosh, I thought everybody was drinking 6 drinks and I see nobody else is. Or B, I sort of said, or you may see the way people are acting when they're over drinking and you'd be like, I don't want to be that person. Either way, they both apply.
Yes.
So, wow.
And
This,
that's when they've made it home. I know the clients are going to be okay when they have that response. And I cultivate that along the way. So when you do drink 1 or 2 extra and we have a discussion about the over drinking event, then I'm reinforcing, how did it feel the next morning? And how was your energy? And did you eat breakfast? And what do you remember about the night before? And that's the stop and become present work that doesn't happen when you're doing it on your own.
right.
So it reinforces, it plants the seeds, and every time people stay working with me, it works that way. And then they become unconsciously competent, and it's their new norm now.
It's the new norm, the final, unconsciously competent, that this is just the way you are. It's coming up for me that having your spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever, or child, be that person for you, that's not going to really work out that well.
No, we don't want to set up the warden, the CO, the person that's your keeper. We don't want your spouse to be your keeper, babysitter, or parentify them in your relationship. You need to be equitably adults together. And it never works out when someone else holds my pills or someone else pours my wine or someone else is in charge of that. Because as a responsible, mature adult, self-regulation is key to happiness and well-being.
Right. Wow, this was such a big and deep conversation. Do you have a challenge this week or no?
I do. I want you to think about your future, because alcohol generally doesn't have you do that. So you lose your imagination and you lose your creativity if you're drinking frequently. So today's challenge is, I want you to look into the future. Fast forward to next year, or a milestone like your next big birthday or your house purchase or whatever. And who do you want to show up as? Like, if you're going to a class reunion next summer, who do you want to show up as? Who do you want to be for your children, your spouse, your parents? Who do you want to be for yourself, most importantly, in this world? How do you want to show up? Do it on purpose. Do it on purpose.
Wow. And what's coming up for me is, even today, I had a conversation with someone who's a teenage child, just wants to have like a quote, real relationship with their father. And so alcohol disrupts that and prevents that. And so the challenge is, think about your future and fast forward to next year. For me, I call this Dear Future Self. I wrote a book on this, and I have a podcast called Dear Future Self. So think about your future. It may be your son's wedding, as was the case of one of your examples in an episode, or like you said, especially a reunion where you would intentionally hide and drink or whatever. And then ask yourself, who do I want to show up as? And how do I want to show up? Wow. Oh my gosh, I'm going to literally have to do some breathing after this episode, Michelle. I know, to our listeners and our viewers, I know this is a lot. This one was deep, but I want to remind you, this conversation that we had today did not come out of nowhere. This is the 11th of a 12-part series. There's so much information. I literally beg you to go back. You'll find in the notes the link to the whole series. I beg you to start at the beginning and go back. And if there's anyone you know where you might recognize some of these symptoms or whatever, if they ever say to you, gee, I wonder sometimes if I'm an alcoholic, or I feel like I wish I didn't drink so much, or I didn't want to drink that night, but I did, any kinds of these comments, then you could just simply say, oh, I know a podcast about this, and I'll send it to you.
Mhm.
And maybe in that way, we can help and support the people we love as well. So any last words today, Michelle?
Oh, I just want to say thank you so much for moderating this so well and stopping where it's important and discussing this. And also, thank you for listening. For those of you who are curious or wondering or worried about a family member or yourself, thank you for coming to this series and listening, because I'm really putting my heart and soul into giving you the best understanding of this from an 18-year point of view, working professionally with thousands of people over time in the worst situations and in the best situations and everything in between. So thanks for coming and listening to this. And I really, from the deepest place in my heart, hope that it's helping and reaching some of you, if not all of you, so that we don't have to stop drinking entirely. We have to know how to use it wisely, as we would anything we're putting into our bodies. We have to be wise about it. Especially in this day and age, we have to be wise about self-care and kindness and compassion.
Yeah.
So
Gosh.
thank you for coming. Thank you. And thank you for hosting. I can't believe we got one more to go. I can't believe we're so close.
I know, that was like a prayer, to which I want to say amen. All right. Well, next week we'll be wrapping it all up, and I'm already interested to know what that conversation is going to be like. And thank you to everyone. And Michelle, see you soon.
Thank you.